James Swanwick here, and Sober October is here. For the entire month of October, if you would like to take a 30-day break from alcohol and participate in our 30-day no alcohol challenge, then I have a 20% off code for you. You can just go to 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com and at checkout type in the word podcast into the promo code section, and that will trigger 20% off. Just to be clear, our 30-day no alcohol challenge is 30 pre-recorded training videos, which we will email to you each day for the 30 days. What I mean by that is that each day I'll send you a 2 to 5 minute training video showing you how to rewire your mindset around alcohol. If you are on Facebook, you'll also go into a private and confidential Facebook group where you can get support with other members around the world. Now, I do want to be clear. 30-Day No Alcohol Challenge is just a nice little program that will give you an introduction to how to rewire your mindset around alcohol. This shouldn't be thought of as the final goal, the trick, the thing, the breakthrough that's going to stop your drinking habits forever. That really is reserved for our 90-day flagship process, which is called Project 90, because that involves real-time Zoom call coaching with Yale and Harvard-educated addiction coaches, plus a really engaged, like-minded community of business owners and professionals. However, if your intention is to take a 30-day break, and that's it, and you're not yet ready to commit to lifelong power over your drinking, but you want to engage in Sober October, then head over to 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com and just use the code PODCAST in the promo code, and that will trigger 20% off. This offer runs the entire month of October 2023. So if you're listening to this on October 7 and Sober October's effectively already begun, you can always just begin your 30-day no alcohol challenge on October 7. Likewise, if you're listening to this on October 20, you can start today if you like on October 20. And the same thing will run. It doesn't mean that just because you've missed October 1st that you can't engage and participate in the 30-day no alcohol challenge. Likewise, many of you who've been listening might look at this as an opportunity for you to dip your toe in the water, so to speak. It's a very non-threatening, easy, simple kind of open the door cautiously, go in there and get some of the training videos, be part of a Facebook group, get a little bit of accountability and support. That might just be one good first step before you really entertain the idea of potentially getting premium support and ongoing coaching in personal development to help you stop drinking. So that's it from me. Let's begin the podcast for today, but just one final call on that. If you'd like to participate in our 30-day no alcohol challenge during the month of October, you can go to 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com, use the code podcast in the promo code, and that will trigger 20% off. All right, let's get into today's episode. It's May 8, 2023 in Roseville, California, 11:30 a.m. Daljit Ghuman, a 42-year-old attorney from the nearby town of Elk Grove, is dressed in her navy-colored Banana Republic worksuit and walking purposefully into the Eureka restaurant to meet a colleague. Just 30 minutes earlier, Ghuman had been arguing her last family law case for the day at the Sacramento Family Courthouse, where she had a total of 4 on the calendar that morning. It may still be morning, but Ghuman's afternoon schedule is clear, and she's ready to have some drinks. Little does she know, the next 4 hours will change the course of her life. Ghuman is a mother to 3 children, a 13, 10, and 3-year-old. She's Punjabi Indian, a culture in which women are expected to have it all together, but rarely do. She's supposed to be a great wife, an attentive mother, and a high performer in the workplace. But Ghuman doesn't have it all together. Her work as a family law attorney and the pressures of having her home affairs in order all the time leave her highly stressed. Long hours and emotionally draining legal cases means she's not always an attentive mother, especially to her 3-year-old son who requires the most attention. She is racked with guilt. Her marriage is showing signs of strain. And she suffers from crippling sleep challenges, waking up at 3 a.m. most mornings, often unable to fall back asleep. This fills her with dread and crippling anxiety. Panic rushes through her body most mornings. Ghuman turns to alcohol to help her deal with the pain. She consumes 5 to 6 glasses of sparkling wine or champagne most afternoons. She convinces herself it helps, but the reality is different, and the consequences severe. They will be especially severe on this May 8 day at the Eureka restaurant in Roseville, as she and her colleague drink a flight of 4 mimosas each. In just 1 hour, and still before lunch, the duo has consumed 8 drinks between them. At 12:30 p.m., Ghuman and her colleague leave Eureka and get into Ghuman's black BMW SUV. Likely over the legal driving limit, Ghuman drives the 3 minutes to the nearby Galleria Mall anyway. Arriving safely, she parks the car and the duo walks confidently to their next watering hole, the Land Ocean restaurant. Over the next hour, Ghuman drinks 2 glasses of Prosecco, Italy's version of sparkling wine. And an hour after that, at 1:30 p.m., the party continues at nearby Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Ghuman orders 2 espresso martinis. By 3 p.m., she is drunk. Somehow realizing she must get home to her husband and children, she stumbles out of the restaurant as concerned staff and customers look on. Somehow, almost miraculously, she's able to phone her husband, although he will later say she was incoherent. He's simply unable to determine what she's saying. She is, however, able to somehow text him her drop pin location via her iPhone. What happens over the next 4 hours, Ghuman isn't clear on. What is clear is that her concerned husband leaves the kids with Ghuman's mum, gets in his car and drives 70 minutes north from their home in Elk Grove to Roseville to try to locate his wife. He phones. There is no answer. He texts. No answer. When he arrives at the Galleria Mall, he frantically searches both parking lots. There is no sign of his wife. He searches restaurants and walks up and down the mall. Nothing. Night starts to fall. It's now 7 p.m. As panic grips him, he looks across busy Galleria Boulevard towards a Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant parking lot. There, he sees his wife's black BMW. He races over and approaches the car. What he finds will shock him and Ghuman to their core.
He came and he found me just kind of slumped over and in the driver's seat. So either I was going to try to move the car or something. And it was pretty bad. He's like, you just look like a zombie just sitting there, trying to get help. And then he took me home and then I was like, all right.
Ghuman, who would later notice she had scrapes and bruises on the top of her feet and knees, indicating she may have fallen on her way to locate her car, doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know when or how she found her car in the Galleria Mall parking lot, or just how she ended up in the Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot. She doesn't know how she got the scrapes and bruises. It's all a blur. What she does know that day, as she's driven home by her husband, is that she needs to change. She knows she can't get power over her drinking on her own. She knows she must get professional support. 3 days later, Ghuman begins a 90-day stop drinking program. 100 days after that, Ghuman is a new woman. She describes feeling clear, focused, energized. She now sleeps through the night. No more waking up in a panic at 3 a.m. She's present with all 3 of her children. She's had healing conversations with her husband, lost 10 pounds of unwanted body fat, and is experiencing feeling joy. Remarkably, a business deal generating her 800 new immigration clients with the potential to generate millions of dollars of income has suddenly fallen into her lap. In short, stopping drinking has transformed Ghuman's life. I'm James Swanwick, and this is Inspiring Stories from Alcohol-Free Lifestyle. Welcome to the show. I'm James Swanwick. It's always amazing to be able to interview someone who has graduated their 90 days without alcohol. And today we're going to be talking to Daljit Ghuman, who's 42. She's a married mother of 3. She's an attorney, and she's based out of Alcove, California, which is about 30 minutes south of Sacramento. And Daljit is going to tell us a little bit about what life was like when she knew she was drinking too much, what was family life like, what was work life like, what was being a mother like when she was drinking too much, and what happened over the 90 days of her not drinking and what her plans are for the future. Daljit, great to have you here.
Thanks, James. Glad to be here.
And congratulations again. What kind of feeling is it to know that you've completed 90 plus days without alcohol?
Definitely a feeling of accomplishment, but a personal, very personal, more than I've had a lot of accomplishments, I think, in life. But this is one that felt something I needed to do for me. So it felt really good.
And when you say it felt like something you needed to do for you, does that imply that maybe you were doing things for others for too long and you hadn't really focused on yourself?
I feel that being a mother of 3 and my husband, maybe a 4th child, I feel like sometimes at times I was just running and constantly worried about, home life, and then being busy with my profession. And then I took time to slow down. I think I used alcohol or misused alcohol a little bit to what everybody else thinks, to relax or have downtime. But it really turned out that it was just kind of giving me more anxiety throughout the night. That was the first reason I chose was I was having like 3 a.m. anxiety majorly, waking up and then not being able to go back to sleep. So it disrupted my sleep. It started becoming, I guess we can talk about the good things and the bad things, but it started becoming just where I realized it was just kind of messing with my marriage a little bit, because my husband's like, oh, okay, not back, not back again on time, or, what is this, a weekly thing, or a daily thing. It slowly started becoming. But I definitely felt that I needed to do something about it, because again, I think the anxiety was so bad that I just felt like in the middle of the night, I was just like, it almost felt like you did something wrong. It was a guilt / anxiety, I guess. But and then I had a lot of deadlines on top of that. So maybe it was just all at once. I can't really explain the feeling, but it's something needed to change.
I think a lot of married mothers who are also managing a business would resonate with the idea that you were feeling anxious and stressed and possibly overwhelmed. Look, all of us, men and women, but when you're a mother, you're a wife, and you're a business owner, and you're trying to manage the whole household, and as you jokingly said, maybe your husband at times felt like a 4th child. That's a lot, isn't it? I mean, that can get really overwhelming, and it sounds like that's what happened. Could you just tell us a little bit more about your family and what you do? Just give us a little bit more context. We'd love to know what type of attorney you are and what your business is, and just share a little bit.
Sure. I've been practicing almost 6 years. I went into becoming an attorney a little bit later. I actually had 1 child during law school, and I had a 3-year-old at the time while I was in law school. And then I actually had my 3rd child, my boy. I said, after I pass that bar, I'm going to wait on this 3rd one. But I wanted my boy, and I got him. The always going and always having to make sure, so, they got that warm cooked meal at the end of the night. And then I started kind of like dabbling with, do I want to go on my own? You never know, as when you come out of law school, exactly which area you're going to go into. So I just started where I was like, I just need to get thrown out there and learn it that way. I've always been one of those people that if the pressure's on, I'll figure it out. So I started being like a special appearance attorney for this criminal defense attorney who would just tell me, go to this county. And sometimes he'd put me in situations where the opposing counsel or the judge wasn't very happy. So But it taught me a lot. And then I said, you know what, I could just do this better on my own. So I just opened up a little small shop, I guess you can call it, in downtown Sacramento. And I did that for a couple of years, and then maybe 3 years, and then some other gentleman approached me saying that he wants in being I'm an Indian, so I speak Punjabi too, another language. So we have a lot of community that prefers to have somebody that speaks Punjabi and understands a little bit of the culture. So I had another gentleman who's Indian reach out to me saying, "Hey, I've heard about you. Let's get into this together." I kind of was wary in the trust issues a little bit I have had. Not that I heard anything bad about it, but then I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll go ahead and try this out. We can make something bigger and better. Tried it out about a year and a half, and I realized he was a little bit going in a different direction. He had a lot of things open all at once and wasn't really focused on what I thought he was going to be focused on, which was the law practice. So then I just put it back on my own, and all of a sudden, it just seems like in the last 2 years or so, it's just really became really big. I have a San Francisco office, a Sacramento office, and the one that's exploded pretty much is immigration. So my main focus now is going to be immigration, but I had been doing divorce, family law, child custody, criminal defense, and then I decided, you know what, I got to get away from the divorce stuff. Child custody can get really emotional and, as you know, and pretty intense. So that would actually be some of the stress. Drinking was one of the reasons I would do that, and just kind of some of the things you see where couples are fighting over things that they shouldn't be fighting over, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to slowly step away from this. So right now, I'm really expanding in the immigration area. So
Did I pick up that you felt a lot of stress and anxiety from some of the heartbreaking stories that you experienced over custody battles, or was it more out of frustration or anger towards a lot of these couples who are fighting over children or fighting over possessions?
Honestly, it was the children. I feel like, okay, you're fighting over custody over them, but it really was a fight between them. Maybe they didn't even realize it. And it was just yeah, I got a lot of anxiety out of, okay, let's your couple stuff. You guys already understand you need a divorce, but the child here in the middle doesn't understand what's going on. So there was a lot of emotion attached to it. So yeah, there was a lot of stress and anxiety.
And did you experience you taking that home with you, that stress and anxiety from what you were doing professionally? Did you take that back into the home life, which maybe was then compounded by the drinking?
Everybody says you shouldn't take your work home with you. Well, that's impossible as an attorney and being a single mom not a single mom, I'm sorry, a mom of 3 children. You tend to, it's really difficult to separate the two. So yeah, I believe even though as hard as I tried, I take a lot of it with me.
And so when you would come home from work, how old were your children when this was going on? Like, how old were they?
So my oldest right now is 13, middle one's 10, and my boy's 3. He'll be 4 soon. So yeah, everybody was under 13 while this was going on. So a lot of resonating on like how children feel, and people are not really considering their feelings. And divorce is just difficult on its own. So I understand that. And I wasn't, and I find myself to be more of a mediator than I do an attorney in the divorce situation. In criminal defense, you're on one side, but in divorce, it tended to be, all right, you guys got to work this out, otherwise it's going to drag on, and the child's suffering in the middle. So I think I took a lot of that home.
And you mentioned that it possibly caused some marital strain. If you feel comfortable to share, what was going on in your marriage at that time as well?
So my husband, he drinks, he still does too. And he has his, like, he can do that one and stop. And I've always kind of been that can't stop at 1 or 2. But generally I've cut back I've actually been able to quit at a time before, but it always be like, okay, I can moderate, this is social, I can become socially acceptable, but it just started spiraling back to it becoming an issue for me and just causing the strain in our marriage. Why I think it caused a strain with him is he's just like, as you're getting older, like I know when we were younger, it's just not the same effect. You can start being kind of mean, some of the things you say, and just just a little bit distant. I just kind of started, I guess, isolating myself more. And he really likes attention. So, when the attention started getting off of him as the years went by, and being busy with work too and children, that caused a little bit of it. But I think it was more like I started choosing alcohol to be my friend in need in times, and he just couldn't get his head around why I wouldn't want to come home to the family sometimes. And it's not that I would spend go out till midnight, but even 7, 8, and choose to go drinking with some of my colleagues or work friends and other friends instead of coming straight home. He hasn't had, I wouldn't say he has an issue, but when we go on vacation, he can get a little out of control too. It's just, he thinks that I do come from a family where my dad had a huge, he was an alcoholic. He used it for depression and all that. So he was like, given that you have this gene, as they say, why are you even knowing that it's become a problem? And I tended to, I'll be transparent. I tended to drink and drive, sometimes not even thinking, oh, I'm not drunk. I've just had a few, gotten in that car. But there's times where I'm like, why did I do that? And that stuff. And he's like, you're going to lose your license, your attorney license, your, bar, driver's license. And then you have little ones and you're not really thinking about them. But, when you start drinking, you don't really think about anything else. You're just kind of supposed, I think the effect is you kind of start letting go of what you care about, kind of become carefree, which when I was sobering up the next day, it'd be, okay, yeah, this was not okay for me to get in the car and start driving, knowing that, I've had more than probably the legal limit. As
Yeah.
a criminal defense attorney, I was over that limit. I know. So
Thank you for being so candid.
yeah.
Just to share an anecdote, I recall back in my drinking days, I was living in West Hollywood, California, in Los Angeles, and I would go to the Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I would drive down there, and I would have 2 or 3 drinks, and then I would drive home. Now, in Australia, the drink driving limit is 0.05. But in the US, or at least in California, it was 0.08. So I remember thinking, oh, great, I got another point whatever here. So I can drink actually a little bit more than what was the limit in Australia. And so I did, feeling confident that I wasn't going over the limit. But I got to tell you, there were a couple times. It's only a short little 4-minute, 3.5, 4-minute drive from the Jones Bar back to where my home was. But I would pull into this Carl's Jr. Burger fast food drive-through at 11:30 midnight and order a Carl's Jr. Burger with some fries. And there were a couple times I remember almost banging into the microphone, where you're giving your order to the, in the drive-through. And then I remember one time very vividly where I was driving and I came out of Carl's Jr. and I had to turn left, and there was a traffic light there, and it was on yellow, turning red. And then I actually saw it turn red, and I still went left, and I went, slammed on the accelerator and turned around. Now, thankfully, nothing happened. But at that moment, I realized I'm probably over the limit here. At least I feel like I'm over the limit. I may have been 0.07 or 0.08. I may have passed a test, but I was, my motor skills were terrible in that moment. I was not focused. I wasn't paying attention. I was all over the place. So it is dangerous, isn't it, when you think about that?
I think I would say I've even done it where okay, I think the thing with me is I have to get home, to prove that I got to take care of the children, and I'll have it still done, even though I'm drinking. So it was getting in the car unnecessarily, trying to get home. And then of course, arguments would ensue oh, you're choosing to do this again. And I had to prove him wrong. So it was pressure about doing something right, but then choosing to make the decision of driving like that, which is never good. We have Uber out here, and I don't know if that's out there in Australia or not, but
yeah, no, it is. Yeah. It sounds like you had lots to lose.
Yeah,
lots to lose, right?
And actually, that's his comment to me all the time. You have so much to lose. What are you doing? And to be even more honest, it caused to him to get into an emotional affair with somebody at work and go in that direction. And I didn't at first it was kind of shocking that like, is it really that bad that you had to go to somebody else to talk about it? And he's like, well, you've tried to quit before and it's been many times, and I've tried to tell you that this is the reason why I don't want to keep on doing this, because I don't think you're going to ever be able to let it go. So, I'll be real, it's been I've had many great times with it, and it finally made me feel like, okay, I can go out with some friends and not have to worry about all these things, work aside, but just like the duties as a Indian mom, and to making sure the kids are fed at a certain time. And I didn't really have that help. Like, some people have the grandparents living with you and all that. So there was a lot of pressure, but I can see my husband's view of it now, as it's only been 90 days, but I can see where he's coming from. It can be frustrating when you're trying to plead with somebody, hey, you'll have a lot to lose, but you're just not making any changes towards it. So
Would you elaborate a little on the cultural expectations on an Indian mother?
yeah, let's just start with, we're not supposed to drink. That's like, if I'm Punjabi, which it's funny because we're Sikh, or Sikh, is how some pronounce it, and it's not supposed to be done, men or women, but Punjabis are known to be like, no, the men drink, they dance, they go to parties, and that's their thing. A woman, when she wants one, she would have to always sneak one, or go, hey, make sure pretend it's a Coke, and throw some, um, what do you call it, whiskey in there or something. And so my mom didn't realize that, I'm a sibling of, I have 5 siblings, and my mom never realized we were drinking until she realized, okay, I was probably in my late 20s when she's like, wait, you drink? And I'm like, yeah. We got so good at hiding it in our 20s because we knew the girl, because I have 4 sisters, 1 brother. And by the way, if you even get into that, that's just we have 4 of us have an issue with drinking, 2 don't. So, it did play a role that my dad had it really bad. Actually, he passed away from, you can just say, alcohol. So, the cultural expectation is women don't drink, and they're supposed to make sure that the children are taken care of, profession or not. Either that, or they get the hired help, or they get everything done. But generally, we are supposed to be stay-at-home moms. But as society has changed, they realize, oh no, okay, education's good, working's good, but then they still have to make sure all that's done, or taken care of. Children, dinner, lunch, breakfast, taking them to school, all that stuff. So
So you had your husband's expectations, you had cultural expectations of just being a mother and being a wife, and then in addition, you had the expectations of your culture, of your Indian culture. That's a lot to take on.
Yeah. So.
And do you feel like that combination played a big part in you trying to release the tension of that? And
Definitely.
you turned to what we refer to as attractively packaged poison.
Definitely. I think I always used to say, I'm not going to be like dad. I'm not going to go. He was one that would just sit in the garage by himself, isolate, and just drink. And I didn't realize, as a child, you're just like, what is he doing in there? Like, doesn't want to go with us anywhere. Just wants to be in there. My mom was like, all right, let's go, kids. And it'd always be like, all right, we're going with my mom. And I'll get into specifics if you prefer, if you like. But he would not be the same person when he was sober. Like, he tried, and I think it's a bit sad that, like, he didn't have all the resources back then as we do now, and people still choose to not try as much. But he didn't really have those resources, or even understand, hey, it's making my depression go away when I have 1, 2. But then he didn't realize it's making his depression worse and worse. And so I don't totally like put all kinds of blame on it, but there was a lot of pressure when all these expectations came. And then I said, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be a social drinker and use it for, just to relax every once in a while. And so for a long time, it did work. In my 20s, you couldn't tell. I have some friends that said we couldn't tell whether you had 5 or none because you were able to put on this facade like, yeah, I'm good. But that changes for women, I think, as you get older, it starts to show a little bit more, sneak up on you yourself. You're like, whoa, well, I think I had a few too much. So yeah, the expectations definitely, I think it put on a weight, so to speak, and you felt like when you took that first drink or two drinks, it took the weight a bit off.
What was your alcoholic drink of choice? What were you drinking? What type of drinks?
Mine goes in phases. As I was in my 20s, it was like, okay, I can't have vodka. That's a devil's drink for me because I'll start acting funny or to myself or throwing up or whatever. Then it was like, all right, I got to stick to Canadian whiskey. What was that called? Crown Royal. Crown Royal. And I was doing I didn't start drinking till I was 21, like of legal age over here. So it was, all right, I'm gonna have, and I don't know what the thing is with California. Everybody thinks shots are cool. And as I started getting older, I'm like, why not just chill and have a mixed drink? So then I went to just mixed drinks. And then I started doing vodka. I was like, oh, I can have vodka mixed drinks. Then I was like, you know what? I need to get off. This is becoming an issue for me in my head. I need to start having wine. That's okay. So then it went to the phases of all kinds of wine. And then finally in my most recent days, like it was all champagne pretty much. But bottles, like one, two, and then I'm like, all right, this is getting to be too much too. So yeah, it went in phases. I think I started with hard liquor and then I went into the wine phase. Never
And
liked
then
beer.
and then
So
finished with champagne, bottles of champagne, yeah?
yeah.
And were these extravagant, expensive bottles of champagne, or were they cheap bottles of champagne? Like at the end, before you went through this and you stopped drinking, was it like buying a bottle of champagne at a grocery store, bringing it home and drinking it, or were you drinking it, ordering at a bar, and then you're going home and weren't drinking it? What was the lifestyle?
I always started at a bar, and it was like more where a lot of people were at, and it was throughout the week. I would say maybe 3 days out of the week, it started becoming where, all right, I finished my morning court appearances. Most of the times these have been wins, or I've got a new client. So lunch, 12:31, start there, and I'd be like, I still got to get home by 4. Got to start sobering up. I didn't always choose to want to drink at home. And then sometimes I'm like, well, I'm still okay. Let me grab a bottle from the grocery store and take it back. But Prosecco's not something too expensive, but not something that was like, what do you call those $2
Two
bottles?
buck chuck is
That's
Charles
what it
Shaw.
is.
That's a brand of wine in California. 2 buck chuck. It's Charles
Okay.
Shaw.
All right. My husband said something they're like at Trader Joe's or something. I'm like, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, that's right.
They all
Trader.
taste
That's
the
where you
same.
buy Charles Shaw. 2 buck chuck.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Got it. So you were starting your daily drinking 12:31. Yeah.
I call myself a day drinker. I'm
Mm.
more than a night drinker because by the time I'd get to the evening, I was like, all right, I have to feed the kids. And I'm like, well, like, in my head, I was like a little wobbly, got to make sure they're fed. And then I'd pass out. So, and then
Mm.
I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with that extreme hot anxiety pressure, like I was going to have a heart attack kind of thing. So,
Could you get back to sleep after you woke up at 3?
took me most of the time, hour and a half to 2 hours to go back to sleep. And
Nightmare.
yeah.
I can't stand that feeling. That's the worst, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I
And
don't I don't drink, but I mean, just if I had a serious case of awful jet lag recently when I flew from Australia to the UK, and I could not sleep, but I was so tired. I was exhausted and couldn't sleep. And I would have paid anything for a doctor to just given me anesthetic to just put me to sleep. Literally, I was ready to hand over £1,000 to someone. Just give me an anesthetic and put me to sleep because I wanted to sleep. I needed to sleep and I couldn't sleep. And the feeling was just horrendous. And I can imagine that maybe you felt something of that consistently over many nights, it sounds.
yeah. It became a point where I don't ask for much help. That's been always my thing. I'm the second oldest, and it just been like I've been able to handle. I've been working since I was 15. You handle it. Those nights were like, please give me something to put me to sleep because I have to go to sleep. I have to get up and not be all groggy for court. I need to get the kids to school or whatever the case is. But I would like almost want to reach over to my husband, like, give me something to, but I didn't do that because it would be that I told you so, bit. You need to do something about it. So yeah, it was one of those ones where exact feeling you're saying, but something I did to myself. So at the end of the day, jet lag you can't control, right? Really, if you're traveling, but that you can. So yeah, I think it was the anxiety of like, I gotta get back to sleep and I can't. And then the guilt of, well, I chose to do this again. So
What time, when you ultimately did get to sleep, what time then were you waking up? Let's just say you woke up at 3, you got to sleep at say 4:30. What time were you then waking up the second time?
I'm a morning person generally, so and I have to be. And I think I kind of was like my mom used to be like, yeah, it's crack of dawn, everybody get up. And so it's about 6 o'clock was my time to get up.
Okay,
The
so you got about another 90 minutes of sleep. And then I'm imagining you got 3 kids who are going to get up soon, right? And you've got to manage them and you've got to prepare for your day. Is that how it played out?
Yeah, my girls go to school actually near my office, which is far from home. They get in the car with me on summer break during the 90 days. I had a nice, like, okay, a little break of the driving them and stuff. I got more time to myself. But yeah, I had to make sure they're ready, got up, had their breakfast. All of us are out the door. I'm semi-religious, I guess you could call it. Like I'm more spiritual. So I would throughout this, I got time to like meditate in the morning, meditate at night, and it just was like this is like almost more than I even need. But yeah, there's so much more time. It's crazy. But yeah, I had a lot to do in that time when I woke up.
Got it. Well, look, let's change direction here a little bit because we've been talking about all the doom and gloom of what it was like. And of course, now as we're recording this, we're celebrating what life is like now, which is very different. So between what you were describing was the norm for some time and now, what was the catalyst for you finally taking action with us? I mean, I think you listened to us on a podcast or you saw a Facebook ad. And when I say us, I'm referencing alcohol-free lifestyle, and we have our 90-day stop drinking process and program for business owners and executives and top professionals. What was it that made you seek us out? Like, was there an incident or was it the accumulation of years of this stress and anxiety and you just needed to have a change? What was the catalyst?
So I've seen like some of your stuff pop up on Instagram and Facebook, and it was probably because I had been searching like books to read on to try to figure out how to stop it. And there was Alcohol Lied to Me was the first one that I like purchased, and I was like, all right, this is kind of resonating with me. Some of the things in here and this whole subconscious conscious thing, and you're like, oh, what the heck is this? Like a lot of the knowledge as it started coming in, then I was like, all right, I did that for a bit and I stopped reading it at like towards the end. I'm not saying that that's the reason why I went back to it. It was just like, well, I can moderate. That always came up, and something didn't click there. And then I guess it was an incident. I had drinking a lot during the day, and I had a colleague with me, and I would say this was way too much. And in my head, I thought I was going to Uber, and it's a town called Roseville that I was in, so it was even maybe an hour and 10 minutes from home, and so I would call it a blackout. Like, I don't even know how I got into my car, but I think I was trying to get my husband to be like, all right, screwed up again here. And I had way too much. We started day drinking way too early. And I think it was around like 5, 6 o'clock. And he was really concerned because he's like, she sent me a message, but I can't figure out where she is. And I think I tried to send him my location or something. He came and he found me like just like kind of slumped over and in the driver's seat. So either I was gonna try to move the car or something. And it was pretty bad. He's like, you just look like a zombie just sitting there, like trying to get help. And then he took me home, and then I was like, all right, I've gotten to a point where I quit all the way. I think I did like almost 100 days or something around there before. But then I'm like, all right, I can do this again. I mean, I can't do that again, but I can moderate, I can control it. I would start that way. It would start for like a week or two, and then slowly it'd start progressing again, because of course you think you got control, again with it when you don't, and it just started creeping back up to becoming a bad situation. Then I found I watched some of your Instagram, I guess, podcasts, and they were just the new trend is actually this. And I've always been like a celebrity, vanity is a big thing for me too. All this like skin glowing and all this search, like why people choose this lifestyle now, and all of that kind of intrigued me. And I was like, this seems a little bit, there's a lot more intensity to this. I need more than, and I've tried AA the very first time when I got out of law school. I tried AA, and that was kind of a joke in a sense to me, honestly. I was just like, okay, you're here, you're not going to drink, and then you go home and you're kind of left with you feel like when you're there, you're obviously not going to drink. Maybe the couple of days later you're not going to drink, but then it's like it was almost like I feel like there's not enough here to give me why I should quit forever. So anyway, I found yours, just kept coming up on my feed, and I kept watching them, and I really liked the whole new trend, new lifestyle. I'm kind of like dieting. I mean, I've been a big, all right, you can eat clean, low carbs, all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll get to a point and an understanding where this with a group effort can help me. But at the same time, not be like the whole AA style either. So I gave, I think I called whatever number was out there, and I had a phone call with Jim, and he told me some stuff that resonated with how his marriage just got way better. And I knew I needed to do something about that too. And then just how his life is just a whole lot better. And he really convinced me that I am a good fit for this. And given that my work, I'm an attorney, business owner, that this is probably something that will be good for me. So.
Again, thank you for sharing so candidly all along the way as in this conversation.
Yeah.
I appreciate that it's not super fun subject matter to be discussing, but I really appreciate you going into such detail, because I'm sure it really supports our listener in understanding, what you were going through. And I'm sure there are many listeners here who can relate to a lot of the themes that we've been talking about now. So thank you. So what was your actual experience inside of this 90-day container that was different to AA, or it was different to you doing it with willpower the first time? What were the differences?
Oh, everything. I think your program has a good mix of, okay, and I like variety. I like being able to choose what works for me. So we got our polos, we got the weekly meetings, which the weekly meetings are my favorite part, because there's always a different subject or topic we're going off of that relates to how we feel and all that. I did, I think, an average of 4. I think our requirement was 2. I did probably 4 even. And then when you started Sundays, sometimes it would become 5 a week, because I liked the interactions with other people, and then seeing, oh, okay, I wasn't the only one feeling this way. And these people are also having the same pressures of work life, children, and just a lot of, I never really got to share how the alcohol was affecting me, or maybe because I was hiding it. But here I felt open to be able to do it. And then the biggest part, I think, for me was the science and knowledge behind it. I had no idea that, you can retrain your brain, or is neuroplasticity, do all that. I didn't know any of that. And I think and then self-love. I mean, I think Sarah does a lot of that. And generally, like, I think it's, again, back to the cultural thing and just being a lot of pressure, mother, you forget about yourself a little bit. And so sometimes you're harming yourself by drinking, but you're thinking, oh, I'm loosening up, or I'm relaxing. And so a lot of the knowledge and science was probably the big one. And then having so many meetings and availability to go to if you felt the need. And the polos were something that are always in your bag or pocket. So it's like, all right, I need to share something and get something off my chest. I almost felt like that was a hit of dopamine or a relief, instead of taking a sip of alcohol. So, yeah.
Just to clarify for our listener, when Dolce is referring to polos, what she's referring to is a video messaging app, which is called Marco Polo. And as part of our 90-day process, our clients who are all going through this 90-day stop drinking process together, they're able to send each other little video messages, little video selfie messages inside a private and confidential group video application. So that's just to give some context there for those who may not have understood when Dolce was saying polos. And the other clientele, I mean, you didn't start on day one with lots of other people, right? Like when you first joined as day one in our program, there were people who were maybe on day 50 or day 90 or day 80. Did that help? Did it hinder? Like depending on what day someone was in, how was that beneficial to you?
I remember the very first meeting I did was actually somebody subbing in. I believe Coach Victoria had like a wedding to tend to. And he himself was saying he went to a wedding, first dry wedding, so to speak. And he was talking about how it was really like, oh, he was more overthinking it before he got there. And he was like 100. I mean, he's I guess a coach, so to speak. So he basically was just talking about his, and I'm like, well, you can do these things like the weddings and the fun stuff dry. And the way he shared it, I think it's nice because there's some people, there's a few that were like early on like me and then kind of confused, how does this work? And then we had our ones that are like 30, like it's getting even better, it feels even better. I'm like, really? Okay. And they're like talking about wanting to stay with that lifestyle, and you get kind of surprised, like, because most people are like, I'm going to hit that goal and want to go back to it, but a lot of them were like, nah, it doesn't seem like I'm feeling that way, but we'll see when it gets there. So I think it's nice having a mix. And then, no matter what subject or topic, like the inner critic or what, and I know this is kind of getting into what the listeners might not understand yet, but getting into the different areas that showed me how the alcohol was either affecting me or not affecting me, or it was very nice to you can pick up, it's like joining a course, and no matter what level you're at, you're going to get something out of it. So,
and being an attorney and running your own firm or practice, whatever the terminology is, what is the right terminology? You run
practice.
Practice, right? I would imagine that the clientele that we had in the community that you joined was vastly different than what you may have experienced when you went to an AA meeting.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, we have here people, I don't even understand what they're doing, but it sounds like it's really important. Like we have, I mean, some of the wealth managers in here, and we have all kind. Yeah, AA just was talking. I felt like it was mothers that, are stay-at-home moms, nothing to deal with all the other outside pressures other than just, oh, I'm bored at home, and sounds kind of.
That was in AA. That's what you're referring
Yeah.
to?
Yeah.
Okay, got
And
it.
it's like, all right, which neighbor to go party with, or that. I didn't have any, I felt like I had no, I couldn't resonate with pretty much anybody in there. The only one that I kind of was drawn to was my sponsor, and she was older. I tend to draw to older people. I feel like they've had more life experiences and whatnot, but it was an all women's group that made it nice. And I felt like I can kind of share a little bit. But after a while, it was like, well, life doesn't sound too hard. It just sounds like you're just needing to quit because it's gotten to a level of where it's affecting your children and all that. So
you didn't relate to being an AA, but why did you relate to the people who are in Project 90 at Alcohol Free Lifestyle?
Oh, I mean, they are business owners. They are high achievers, as this program calls it. They have the pressure of expectations and wanting to be driven to what they want to accomplish, whether it's money or just a certain level of success. So yeah, definitely related to. And I don't even think there was many attorneys that I ran into except for one, and she was past the 90 days in this setting. So, but it didn't matter. We had that same mindset of we are spending our money and wasting our time when we could be doing a lot of other things and have another purpose. So,
why do you feel that what you learned in these 90 days and what you experienced during your 90 days with us is now going to be different, or was different than when you did the 100 days without drinking on your own? Because you did reference before that you've done 100 days alcohol free. You're now 90 something days alcohol free, almost 100 days alcohol free, going through our process. You seem convinced that you're done, right? Like that you've really made a breakthrough. I mean, you've shared that with me now on at least two occasions. Why do you feel this time is going to be different?
I think it's just the fact that I was still giving alcohol value. Like I can't have fun without it. I still felt in those 100 days like there was something I'm losing or missing out on. But I realized in this program that and again I'll reference both Victoria and Sarah, if you keep putting value to it, you're probably gonna go back. But every which way I've looked, there is no value to it. I feel like again, I have siblings. I have one that's particularly really, really going through it, and she can't even. She'll start to laugh if she heard any of this stuff right now because she can't put her mindset there. But I wish like somebody like I said, if my dad had the resources and this program wasn't it wasn't back then, I'm sure. But if he had the resources and all that, I would say please join this because it's the more for me it's more of the understanding how much damage it continues to do to you and how much I feel like I can laugh, dance, and everything without it. And before I used to feel like that's something I have to have with me in my back pocket or on the side. And like I said, culturally, they don't think women drink. I would be hiding in my room to try to just enjoy 4th of July, having like some sips and coming back out and dealing with family. Now I'm like, we're having a good conversation. If I really don't feel like I want to continue on that conversation or it's too much, I can kind of just move aside. It's a very it's the way I explain it is, in my head is that I've been holding too much value to it and it's been nothing but trouble for me. So and I don't feel that if coming this far in my head about it, not just the days, about the understanding and the knowledge about it, I don't see myself wanting to go back. So
Beautiful. And I'm sure women in particular would love to know what physical changes you've experienced from being 90 days alcohol free.
Yeah, so I actually didn't lose too much weight. I kind of started picking other vices like food and all that. But as far as me being able to wake up in the morning and go, oh, yes, this is like waking up in the morning. Like like I said, I've always been a morning person, but now it's like some of it was like almost like a buzz, kind of like a high, and you're like, am I hearing the birds chirp more? Am I hearing just the nice natural nature sounds outside when I step out? And I live in the country, so all these beautiful things are just really coming to me. Before it was like kind of groggy, the clarity wasn't there. Now I'm like, okay, this is what life's supposed to be like. I've been kind of sabotaging myself by not giving myself that freedom, I guess. So for a woman, I would say physical, and then appearance, skin, all of that stuff, a lot better. I feel like that it's going to take me. Now I did it at 42. It might take me a little longer, but definitely physical changes because dehydration and all that affects women's or men too, but skin in general. So, and not wanting to eat all that horrible food. So, um, you know, like you said, the drive-throughs and all the greasy food right afterwards and thinking it's okay.
So do you still wake up at 3 a.m.?
No.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a big win. I want to like give you a virtual high five through the screen here. Well done, because that was a source of real pain and frustration for you. And now what happens? When do you wake up? Like, do you wake up? Do you wake up just to use the bathroom and you go back to sleep? Do you sleep all the way through? Like, what's happening with your sleep now?
I do a meditation right at night. It's a guided one. That I just kind of do because I'm like I want to be able to keep adding to this if I can. But I sleep. The only thing is I still have a 3-year-old and he has all kinds of when I want to sleep or not. But there's no taking some time to go to sleep or any of that. I fall asleep and I get up like clockwork around 5 a.m. That's my time to get up now, but I'm sleeping all the way through. And I'll tell you, not having to worry about that. Oh, I'm getting up at 3 and I'm gonna have to try to find my way to force myself to go back to sleep. That's not there. That's just like in itself beautiful, amazing. And I'm telling you, that's probably like the biggest reason why I knew there had to be a change. I felt like I was gonna have an anxiety attack. And then now seeing the relief from it, it's amazing. So
I'm so happy to hear that.
thank you.
What feedback have you received from your husband?
Oh, he's more loving and more, this is you, this is how you're supposed to be. In the beginning, you're kind of like, well, you get a little more touchy and stuff like that with alcohol, but then it'll always be like, well, no, I'm going to pass out now, I'm tired, or whatever the case is. But our conversation's a lot more deep. We go on our walks together with the kids and the dogs, and we have a genuine conversation. There's more attention given to him just naturally, I guess. Come home, the dinner and stuff is like we sit down together, and we've made a rule with the kids, no phones on the thing, put those away. We don't get much time together, family time, this is it. And it's a lot more meaningful. So I think it's headed even more in a better direction. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
And with your law practice, have there been noticeable changes since you've been almost 100 days alcohol free?
Yeah, I think I shared with one of the groups that I just landed a partnership for another area. I mean, it's still immigration, but it's going to be called West Coast Immigration. And so I have 25% shares of my firm in there, and they're giving 800 clients to us this year, by the end of this year. And then, well, not they, but they're going to transfer over. And then we're anticipating, at the rate things are going, that we'll have 3,000 by the end of next year. We're helping refugees, asylum, immigration, business immigration, a little bit more so we're helping individuals that are fleeing their country because they're in harm, and need to be, they can't go back, else they're going to either be killed or harmed. And so that feeling alone, helping them and then making money at the same time, because we're for profit. So it's just, it seemed like, I think someone called it the domino effect. Like, I wasn't expecting it. It kind of just fell into my lap. I went for one thing down to Southern California, one hearing, and I filled in for somebody, and these two attorneys were like, that was great. We need somebody over on the Northern California, and we're thinking about calling it West Coast. And it was literally one meeting there. They came down here, met me again, and somebody who owns or shares my office with me. And then we went back down to Southern California, and that was it. It's in progress right now. So
Wow, the universe is conspiring to give you what you want and a lot more, it seems.
yeah, I mean, I think of it. My grandmother passed away last year, and she was really, really dear to me. And this year, when it was my birthday in February, I was like, I want this year to be like, she was such a single woman, even though, you don't split as an Indian woman from a man, never touched alcohol because, again, culturally it wasn't accepted, and had to live this hard life and work because it's labor intensive work. And I said, this year, something with my practice has to become bigger, and I'm going to dedicate it to her. But I I dedicated to her, but it happened only because I joined this program. I honestly don't think it would have otherwise.
Mm. Well, that's just lovely to hear. Well, Dolce, thank you so much for, again, I know I've said this a couple of times, but thanks for being so candid on this conversation. I really appreciate you doing that, because, again, it gives listeners permission to be able to share what's going on with them with others. And also, I'm sure people have been really inspired by your journey. I know I certainly have. And so thank you again for sharing it. And also, I want to say thank you as well for being such a positive influence for other clients during the process. I always say it's not just about receiving the coaching and getting something out of being in the program. It's also about giving coaching to others in the form of encouragement and your attentiveness and listening. And you certainly did that, and you were a much loved member of our Project 90 process and program. So thank you.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
And to you, the listener, thank you so much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.
Take care.
If you're an executive, entrepreneur, or investor who's sick of the stop-start cycle and the damaging effects alcohol has on your health, happiness, and family, and you're ready to regain confidence, become more present with your spouse and children, reduce stress, anxiety, and irritability, sleep better, increase focus and productivity, and feel better quickly, you're invited to apply to become a Project 90 client. Applicants can apply for an introductory interview by visiting alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90. There's a link in the show notes which you can just click, but that link is alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90.